tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will be discussing a wonderful topic, one of extraterrestrial proportions, that of the alien conspiracy here in the United States. A long time ago, approximately 70 years ago, during the Cold War, there was a time of political strife between the United States and Soviet Russia. During the time of the Cold War, there was political strife between the two. Now, the best way I can explain this as two girls just not talking to one another because they're jealous of the other one's boyfriend. And what happened during this time period was many different crises. For example, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Berlin Wall, conflict in Vietnam. Now, the conflict between the USSR and America, as I previously explained it, as a pair of girls not talking to one another due to jealousy, well, that jealousy consisted over something called nuclear arms, which are just nuclear weapons that they can use to blow the crap out of each other. So with this, they were constantly trying to upgrade their technology in order to find a way to outdo the other. Now, everyone always believed that both of those two countries had sent spies over, and that's where this whole spy mumbo-jumbo came from. But I know where it came from. I know who is sabotaging those nuclear weapons. I know who found out. It was the aliens.
Well, now that you ask about the history, little lady, what the American people need to understand is technology. And the American technology has taken a rapid increase in the last, 90 years. Just remember, the White brothers barely got a plane off the ground back in 1903, traveled a few feet off the ground for maybe a half a football field, but yet 66 years later, we're landing on the moon. People say, well, it's just because technology got better and better. I say, bogus. No, it didn't happen that way. What it is, we've had alien intervention. In 1903, we could barely get a plane off the ground, put a man on the moon 66 years later, satellites even sooner than that. And what it is, we've had assistance. And no more did you see that assistance than during the Cold War. We had issues where we almost came to shooting each other with missiles. The USSR, the Reds as we called them, and the United States. Well, what happened was, on several occasions, there was issues with the firing mechanisms in these missiles. And I'm here to tell you that it had to do with alien intervention. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, E.T. did not want us blowing each other up because they had helped us got more advanced, in a very short amount of time. But the problem is the Americans and the Soviets, the Reds, well, they couldn't just go and get, all happy with the technology we had. We had to end up trying to kill each other. So they stepped in and they actually prevented World War III, or really the annihilation of the human race.
Robert Hastings, longtime UFO researcher, tried to prove this to us that there were in fact aliens around, and he was pretty capable of doing so by finding out over 120 different witness testimonies as to seeing flying discs in the sky, and also getting them from military personnel as well. Those testimonies from the military personnel came mostly during testing of nuclear sites with these different missiles, and they really just wanted to figure them out, as I would possibly think. So during these nuclear testing sites and the periods of nuclear testing, they would notice that some of the missiles would be disrupted, or their circuits would not work, as in they technically almost as if someone turned them off and made them incapable of being used. They would just have signs of just the missiles would not be able to fire. And a lot of times when they noticed this, they always saw some strange flying discs in the sky. It was incredible. And the fact that Robert Hastings got over 120 of these testimonies, I have to say, that's pretty hard evidence right there.
This show is brought to you by aluminum foil, the best foil for covering dishes, cooking, and repelling mind control. Now, back to your program.
Now you see, there was an incident in New Mexico in Roswell in around 1974. Something happened that caught the attention of many people in that area. What happened is sometime throughout the night, in this time in 1974, there was a large object supposedly reported that was really unknown, and the US military officials were trying to track it. But unfortunately, they did not have any luck. You see, the next morning, let's call him Farmer Joe, I want to protect his identity. Farmer Joe walked outside of his little ranch and discovered a huge trench formed just along his own property lines. And it was just astounding. He'd never seen anything like it. He thought it was an earthquake. Well, I assume that's what I would have thought. And now you see, the weird thing about it, that there was large pieces of metal stuck within that large, unusually formed trench. What could that mean? Well, you see, later that week, Farmer Joe took those metal pieces to the local sheriff's office. He could not explain what he was seeing. These were completely foreign, just pieces of metal. We had never really seen quite anything like it. Now, some speculated that it was Soviet planes trying to perform a reconnaissance on our country. But I know who it was. It was them. It's the aliens. In response to all of this alien hysteria, the government was fabled to create almost a new bureaucratic agency. All of the legends, all of the extraordinary events were compiled into this one area, famously known as Area 51. Now, we don't really know if this area exists, but the government has been known to actually allocate funds to some sort of outside agency that we don't know about. Why do you think our national debt is so large? No, really, think about it. You'll understand what I mean. Because if you realize that everything in the US is perfectly within reason to fund, to not have such a large debt on our hands, why do you think we have such a large one? Aliens.
Beam me up, Scotty.
This show is brought to you by Enterprise Rent-A-Ship. Pick Enterprise, we'll beam you up.
There's been many species that I've researched over the years of these different aliens that we could deduce that it really exists. And, you know, some of my favorites include the Judwigs or the ringers, which are like this kind of different, really species that really like midgets, really. And what they do is they kind of hop around and they have like this very hyperactive thyroid or something like that, you know. But they're really interesting. And I've actually also mastered the mating call of the Jibwubs, which I know are very close to the Jibjibs, but the Jibwubs, there's a U in there, so that's what makes it different. And the mating call goes something like Now you see, I actually have a great affinity for these recent Star Wars films, 1 through 3, which I know everybody loves, and you know it's really. Oh. Hold on for a second, it's my mom calling. Hello, Mama. Yeah. Yes, I'm just doing an interview for my friend here. No. My Xbox goes over there. No, my Xbox goes on the other side of the room. I know I have to move out of the basement soon, but Mom.